Hello and welcome to the Kubernetes Case Files Commentary. I'm your host, Glen Simon, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Katarina Brookfield and Mike Foley, both technical marketing architects for VMware. The Kubernetes Case Files is a kind of a more fun way to talk about app modernization in the context of a fictional detective story. And the story plays out over a series of episodes, and we have reached the final episode. So we've reached the end of our story, but it's the beginning of your story, really, with vSphere and Kubernetes. So let's talk about what you can expect on your journey. So Mike and Katarina, let's kind of put the spotlight on you guys. Of course, you're experts now, but maybe there was a time, well, not maybe, but there was a time when you started with this stuff. So when you began to learn about Kubernetes, what surprised you the most?
Well,
I think,
go ahead,
first, Mike. Okay, what surprised me the most, I think, is how vast the space of Kubernetes is. There's so much to learn in this space. So I'm still learning as well. We all are. It's impossible to know everything.
There are no experts.
There are no experts. It's overwhelming in parts. That was definitely the most surprising part of where do you even begin? There's so many things out there. So how do you even start?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're doing right now is talking about the next version of our software and working with another organization and trying to divvy up who's going to do what. And the list is, a mile long and an ocean wide. And so there's a lot of moving parts. So I think that, like Katarina, that is a little intimidating at first. But, if you hearken back to your original exposure to vSphere, there were a lot of moving parts then too. And, we all get through it. We get through it in our own way, and we'll help you here in this chat to give you some pointers.
So it's a kind of a whole new universe, and I suppose, like anything, a whole new universe of terminology too, just to get. But what about just again in your own experience, what was kind of some of the hardest things to kind of wrap your head around in this area?
I think for me, and I do believe this will be one of the hardest things for typical IT environments to wrap their head around, is the Kubernetes concept of desired state, right? Where today in a vSphere environment, I can, via the GUI or PowerShell or whatever, say, okay, I'm going to set this setting to 2, and it's done. Whereas with Kubernetes, it's the desired state of that setting is 2. So I'll just keep retrying until that desired state is met. So if there's some blocker, maybe the VM is down or it's unavailable, it'll just keep trying and trying and trying. And when the VM comes up, it goes, oh, the VM's there. I can set that setting to 2. So when it doesn't see the ability to affect that change, it shows up as an error. So you'll see a lot more quote unquote errors, but that's okay. And you'll see this at first, your first exposure to it will be during the setup of vSphere with Kubernetes itself, where you're configuring it and it'll say, okay, I need to start up the supervisor cluster. Well, in order to do that, it has to download all of the supervisor cluster bits. So until those bits are downloaded, it'll just keep iterating and saying, I need to deploy, I need to deploy, I need to deploy. Oh, look, the supervisor bits are here. I can deploy. And that was probably my first, what the hell is going on here moment.
Yeah, I think from my side, just to follow up on this, it is that mindset. I come from the infrastructure background, so I wasn't an app developer before. And it is a completely different mindset of how you do things and how you work with tools. And even tools like not just necessarily just Kubernetes, but even I had to learn basic tools like what is Docker? How do you create a basic image? what is Git? How do you push something to a repository? So all of these concepts that maybe when you come from the infrastructure side is not something you have necessarily used before, but it's certainly something that you can learn to operate. So, and again, we will try to help you with some guidance on that.
Well, yeah. So what did help you the most? Was there anything
Diving in.
diving in?
Yeah, head first into
Oh
the
boy.
empty pool.
Oh no.
No, I had come on board, and I was having a great deal of difficulty getting things installed and configured because there were just so many moving pieces in the first iteration of vSphere with Tanzu. So I was like, there has to be an easier way to do this. We can't spend all of our resources just getting the product installed and then have no resources afterwards to actually try and deploy applications. So my first thing was, I'm going to write a quick start guide based on my experience. And that quick start guide still has legs to this day. And it's a lot of folks use it in order to, okay, I need to kick the tires. Let me get something up and running so I can see what this is all about. And that's what the goal of it was.
So for me, it was accepting the fact that I can't learn everything about Kubernetes and trying to and trying to simplify that. So what I did, I needed a use case because, as Mike said, I wanted to dive right in because yes, reading books is great to get some, theory, but really doing the things I think helps the most. So I took my blog and converted that into a containerized app and then deployed that. So that helped me to understand how do you deploy a pod and then add it to a deployment and all these things above that. So I would say definitely try to come up with a little use case that you can work with so you can understand the concepts and how they all work together, but really try to start with something simple. Nobody expects you to, day one, start deploying any overly complex modern apps. Just start small and step by step you will get there.
What was the use case?
So mine one was a blog. I just took that, put that in a Docker container, and then deployed it on Kubernetes Kase.
Okay, so yeah, so before we wrap up here, do you have any specific advice, maybe on some resources, things that our IT pros can help them learn and grow with their skills with Kubernetes?
Sure. Yeah, if you go to core.vmware.com/Tanzu, you'll see my quick start guide. You'll see a blog entry I wrote a while back on resources. Those are all very specific to vSphere with Tanzu. I think Katarina probably has some really good resources that are more generic around Kubernetes itself.
Yeah, so for Kubernetes, one source I cannot recommend enough is Kube Academy. So you can go to kube.academy and you will find all these videos and training material from experts that help you understand the concepts from the very basics to a more sort of deep dive kind of video. So absolutely fantastic resource for anybody who's diving into this space.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I haven't spent enough time at Kube Academy, but the little time I've spent has been very productive. So, well, thank you, Mike and Katarina, and thank you everyone for participating in this Kubernetes case files. Good luck and go be the hero in your own story.